Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden world of cybersecurity. Using some amazing guidance from the experts at Microsoft, we're going to explore the art and science of threat hunting. And believe me, it's way less about flashing red alarms and a lot more about good old-fashioned digital detective work.
All right, let's just start with a really important question. We all count on our security software to tell us when something's wrong, right? But what happens when a really smart attacker is specifically designed to be invisible? What if they're already inside your network, just moving around silently, completely sidestepping all those automated tripwires? Well, that exact problem is why threat hunting even exists.
So let's kick things off by going beyond the alarms. We're about to leave behind the reactive world of security alerts and step into this proactive, human-driven space where digital investigators are actively looking for threats that really don't want to be found.
And at its core, this is what we're talking about. According to Microsoft, threat hunting isn't about sitting around waiting for a siren to go off. Nope, it is an active, persistent search. Think of it like this. It's the difference between having a simple motion detector on your front door versus having a security expert methodically checking every single lock, every window, and every shadow for any sign of an intruder.
And that right there is the key. It's all about that proactive mindset. See, a threat hunter just assumes a breach is possible, or heck, that it's probably already happened. Their job is to find that tiny, subtle piece of evidence, the attacker's footprints, so they can understand the full scope of what happened, or maybe even discover a compromise that everyone else completely missed.
But how? How do they even do it? In this huge digital world, where does a hunter even start? Well, it turns out it's not random at all. It actually starts with a really structured way of thinking, a powerful framework that guides everything they do.
Microsoft's elite team, they call them DART, the Detection and Response Team, they use this framework called the Alexio Principle. Now, this isn't some fancy piece of software. It's a mental model. It's a set of 4 guiding questions that can turn a totally chaotic investigation into a clear, methodical process.
And the process really just breaks down into these 4 logical steps. First, you've got to define your objective. What question are you trying to answer? Like, am I looking for signs of a specific ransomware group? Then, okay, what data do you need to answer that? You'll need event logs, network traffic, maybe registry keys. Third, how do you get it? This is the extraction, using all sorts of specialized tools. And finally, the analysis. What's the story the data is telling you?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it highlights a skill that separates the good hunters from the great ones. A good hunter analyzes the evidence they have, but a great hunter asks, what evidence should be here that isn't? You see, an absence of logs can actually be more revealing than the logs themselves. Was data intentionally deleted? Were the logging systems shut down? Sometimes the silence is the loudest clue you'll ever get.
Okay, so now that we have that investigative mindset down, let's look at the actual strategies hunters use out in the wild. How do they follow that trail of digital breadcrumbs?
Well, hunters usually mix and match 3 main strategies. They might start with what's called an IOC, an indicator of compromise. That's a known bad clue, like a file hash from a piece of malware. Or they might go for some quick wins, just searching for common attacker techniques. But the most advanced method? That's anomaly-based hunting. This means you have to know a network so well, know what's normal, that you can instantly spot what's out of place. It takes the most time for sure, but it's how you catch brand new attacks that nobody's ever seen before.
And the whole point of these strategies isn't just to find a bunch of random clues. It's to connect the dots, to string them all together until they tell a story. This is what investigators call the attack narrative. It's the full story that answers who, what, where, when, and how the entire intrusion went down.
Now, to give that story some structure, hunters often use a kind of attacker's playbook called the MITRE ATTAK framework. It breaks down any attack into tactics. Those are the attacker's goals, and the specific techniques they use to get there. So for example, to get initial access, they might use phishing. To achieve persistence, so they can stick around, they might create a scheduled task. This framework lets hunters categorize all the evidence and build a complete picture of the attack, from the very beginning to the very end.
Okay, so a lone hunter is good, but a hunter who's armed with the collective knowledge of the entire security community, that's a total game changer. And this is where threat intelligence comes in. It's basically the secret weapon that puts the whole hunt on steroids.
But here's the thing, not all intelligence is created equal. You can kind of think of it like a pyramid. Down at the bottom, you have tactical intelligence. These are quick clues that are pretty easy to get, and they give you good immediate value. But as you climb that pyramid to operational and strategic intelligence, the effort to get it goes up, but the value it provides, it becomes exponentially greater.
So at the very top of that pyramid, you have strategic intelligence. This is where the hunter has to think like a CEO. They're not looking at lines of code anymore, they're looking at motives. Who would target our company? A rival nation? A cybercrime group? And why? Answering these big picture questions helps you anticipate attacks before they're even on the drawing board.
Okay, moving down a level, we get operational intelligence, and this brings the focus inward. This is all about knowing your own digital home so incredibly well that you'd immediately spot it if a single piece of furniture was moved. It answers the question, where are we the most vulnerable? This is how you establish that super important baseline of what's normal that we talked about, which makes anything abnormal stick out like a sore thumb.
And finally, we get down to tactical intelligence. This is the magnifying glass. This is the real boots-on-the-ground evidence, the specific footprints and fingerprints, like IP addresses and file hashes. This is the intelligence that answers how an attacker is operating right this second, and it's what you use to hunt down a threat that's already in motion.
But find in one threat, well, that's just winning a single battle. To actually win the war, you have to accept that the hunt never, ever really ends. It's a continuous, always evolving cycle of learning and adapting.
And this cycle really shows how it all feeds back into itself. You prepare, you form a hypothesis, you investigate, and you uncover stuff. But that last step, inform, that is the most powerful one. Every single discovery, every new attack or technique you find is immediately used to make your defenses stronger. The hunt itself literally makes you harder to hunt.
And you know, in the end, as Microsoft points out, the greatest strength here is collaboration. When hunters share what they learn, the new tricks, the new clues, the entire community gets stronger. One team's discovery can become another team's proactive defense, and that just raises the bar for everyone.
Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. In a world that's constantly changing, where new threats and new techniques pop up every single day, the work of a hunter is never really finished. The hunt itself becomes the ultimate defense, an endless, ongoing process of seeking, learning, and adapting.